أجمعين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي أما بعد. My brothers, my sisters, the best greeting of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to all of you. Today with another episode, another production of the Save Us Soul Dawah production, we have an interesting guest, a full-time brother, interesting topic, how I wrestled my way to Islam. With me here today to dive into this interesting topic for all of us, our full-time brother, dear Sheikh Abdul Malik, as known Jerome Claire, Abu Hafsa, who is a traveling imam, traveling khatib, and the first totally blind person to be accepted for professional wrestling. Brother Abu Hafsa also carries many titles in previous wrestling matches and events such as tag team and heavyweight. He's the first also totally blind person, I mentioned this, just this is a repeat, to be accepted for professional wrestling. Now, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Allah guided Abu Hafsa to Islam 10 years ago approximately, and he's living with us here in Toronto. I say and I welcome my dear brother Abu Hafsa. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu wa rahmatullahi ta'ala.
طيب, Abu Hafsa, something will interest me and interest our brothers and sisters who's listening, particularly in Toronto, who they know you and they love you, but maybe they haven't heard your story before Islam. Can you tell us about it?
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala khatam al-nabiyyin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. I'd like to first start by thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving me this opportunity to be here, and hopefully inshallah this is the I've told my story many times before, but not in this much of a detail, so I'm very honored to be here, and Jazakallah khair for Sheikh Ahmed for allowing me to come here and be a part of this. It's a monumental program and a monumental project, so alhamdulillah. My life before Islam is a very interesting one, and we ask Allah for first of all to purify our niyyah and to purify our intention behind this dawah program. I was brought up in Nova Scotia and I went to a school that is mainly for blind people. Well, at the time it was only for blind people. It eventually branched out into other things, people who were in wheelchairs and other things of that nature. So I grew up with a lot of different experiences, and a lot of things are attributed to my current situation, and inshallah you'll understand that by the end of this talk, bi'idhnillah ta'ala. At the age of, well, I was born totally blind, as you all know from Sheikh Ahmed's introduction, and from an early age I was taught to not be a blind person, and that may sound a bit strange to people who are listening, but I'll explain it. And that is my mom never ever treated me like I was different from anybody else. And I remember one time I went outside to play in my yard, and my aunts were there and other members of my family were there, and they were concerned that I would get hurt, or they were concerned that I would get hit by a car, or any kind of thing would happen to me. And they made their concerns known to my mom, and they were concerned, and they said, he's going to hurt himself and things of that nature. And my mom said, well, if he hurts himself, he'll find his way back home. And that's basically been the story of my life from the time she said that. I went to a school when I was 5 years old where I had to live there with other people, and I had to grow up there, basically, in terms of, it was a boarding school. And at the age of 4 or 5, I was exposed to wrestling, professional wrestling as you know it, on TVs and videos and things of that nature. My fascination with that sport started at an early age. With the theatrics and the way the wrestlers talked and the way they presented themselves, I was amazed by that at an early age. And at 9, I remember I went into a wrestling coach at 8 in my school, and I fought with him and argued with him and pleaded with him, And he kept telling me that I was too young and I was too small. Usually they start wrestlers at 10 where I went to school. And at 9 I came again and I fought with him. And finally he let me wrestle. And I was really bad at it, to be honest with you. I really got killed for the first maybe year and a half of wrestling because I was too young and I was too small. But as they used to tell me, as my coaches used to say in those days, all guts and no brains, because I didn't know what I was getting in for. So in those days I really took a beating, but it helped me develop my sense of heart. And what that means is basically my sense of being able to endure certain things. And by the time I was 11, I won that middleweight title of my school at 11, which really is unheard of when wrestlers usually start at 10. Soon after that, me and a friend of mine won tag team titles. And these are, by the way, amateur titles. They're not recognized by anyone else. They're not professional in any way. They're just kind of titles that we had at school. And there was 10 to 15, maybe 20 wrestlers. And out of those 20 wrestlers, at least in the middleweight division, I was a champion of them at the age of 11. And even at that age, around 11 and a half, around there, I co-held the tag titles of that same school. And those were against bigger people because tag titles doesn't know any weight class. And I really had a lot of fun and a lot of chances to travel. I also ran track in those days. I ran with a partner, 1,400 meters. I was always into the endurance side of it, so I ran those long distances. And I played several sports that were designed by blind people, for blind people, like one that's called goalball. I played that, and I would encourage people to look it up and find out more about it. It's a very interesting sport. So I was very athletic in my pre-Islamic days, and as I am now. I was very athletic and very into sports. And I was a kid who really, like a lot of people when I read about their becoming Muslim, they have a past where they were searching for something. And I really wasn't. I was a very happy kid. I didn't have a lot of difficulties. I was very happy. I mean, I was born totally blind, but again, instead of being a blind person, I was a person who happens to be blind. And you can think about that, inshallah. You'll get a grasp of what I'm saying, and that my quote-unquote disability was never first, ever. And it's still, alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, it's still not first.